Welcome to the Health Unlimited podcast, the only podcast that unlocks your unlimited health potential. Here's your host, Dominic Sembello.
Welcome back, listeners. Charlie McDermott back in the studio here with Dominic. Dominic, how you doing?
Charlie, it is a beautiful day here in New Jersey. We're 80 degrees. Can you believe that?
Oh, I feel great for you guys. I mean, you've suffered long enough. It's April, for goodness sakes. Spring was weeks ago.
It's a tease, but we'll take it. So I'm just wrapping up here in the office, getting on here with you, and then hopefully I'll get to catch the rest of the afternoon. Maybe a little nice bike ride or something.
Yes, gotta do it. I did peek to the 10-day forecast, and I did notice there was some chilly weather still in store, but make the most of it. So
unpredictable time of year.
Yeah. Well, we spoke in the last episode, which was really, really powerful, and I think I shared a story of a neighbor of mine who ended up fracturing a disc in her back because she stopped on her bike literally to talk with us, and put her feet on the ground, but she didn't know it, and she couldn't really keep her balance, and she ended up tumbling and literally broke, I think, 2 discs in her back. And we saw, and I say saw because we had to move from the community because of the hurricane. Yeah, we had a lot of neighbors, unfortunately, and I think it's indicative to the population. And I want to hear your view on this, battling those types of challenges where they just can't feel their feet. And I know there's a lot of pain involved, which sounds crazy. On the one hand, your feet are numb, but on the other hand, it's from what I understand, it's kind of a painful in many, many ways. So I thought we'd explore in that topic. Is it peripheral neuropathy? Is that the term?
That is the term, peripheral neuropathy. Yes, and it is. It really impacts people's lives significantly. I mean, it robs people of their independence.
Yeah.
Because, what happens is, for those that don't know, peripheral neuropathy typically affects the feet and hands, and it's essentially nerve damage. 3 most common causes are, the most common one is from diabetes, because the sugar, either the excess or deficiency, damages the nerves there in the feet. And then what happens is more issues occur, and it can creep up even further into the legs. Second one that's most common is people going through chemotherapy. It's called chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because that is a side effect of the medication there, the chemotherapy. And believe it or not, the third most common is unknown. They call it idiopathic, or basically that just means they don't know the exact cause. And there are lots of different causes. They just can't identify it. But things like toxins can cause it, or infections can even cause it. But it's really, so it's a generalized term, but it's very significant. Over 20 million Americans suffer from peripheral neuropathy. So, I mean, it's significant.
Now, my experience has been folks who are older. Is that the norm, or does this affect even, folks under age 50, let's say?
Yeah, it does typically happen older.
Yeah.
But again, depending on those comorbidities we talked about. So if they have diabetes, that can happen at any age.
Yeah.
But it is usually older. Again, if it's chemotherapy induced, of course, if someone's going through that at a younger age, that can still happen.
Yeah. So the nerves die. So I guess the big question is, can they rejuvenate? I mean, is it one of those, once you have it, you're kind of screwed, or is there hope?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I always like to say, there is hope.
Yeah.
But let me break down, I guess, a little bit about what you said there. So most people, the standard kind of treatment is taking some type of medication that is supposed to help with like nerve related pain. So there's generic versions and whatever the pharmaceutical name is.
Brand,
but either way, they all do the same thing. It's to try to just dull the nerves from causing that pain. Now, peripheral neuropathy can have a variety of symptoms. Usually it starts out with pain, but what happens is as you get worse, and by the way, if this is left untreated, only gets worse. What happens is you go from having pain to having the pain eventually goes away and it turns to more numbness or no sensation. Or what you talked about with your neighbor there.
Yeah.
What happens is they can no longer feel. So those nerves are getting so damaged that they literally can't feel. Guess what they also can't do? They can't drive. They might not be able to, walking becomes more challenging. Falling becomes more frequent because they can't feel the earth or the ground below them.
Yeah.
Many people can't even wear shoes because the pressure they feel, but it's off. So it's like they wear slippers all the time because they can't put on a shoe. I mean, it can get really, really bad, Charlie. This is a very serious problem for people.
Well, I guess the other piece of that is for those who say, the heck with it, I'm not going to stop driving, or I'm going to continue to live my lifestyle. This poor woman who probably shouldn't have been on a bike, and hasn't been since. It's the same, again, it's a shame she had to go through that, but it was, and it was so strange. It was just like this was happening in slow motion, because you just assume that she was just going to, she stumbled, but she's just going to quickly find her balance, and it just didn't occur. And now looking back, and after talking with you, it was just so clear to me that she just couldn't feel her feet, and therefore had no idea when her feet touched the ground and where they were and how to balance herself. And yeah.
And then when you're older, right, any fall is more detrimental, right? Broken legs, broken hip.
Yeah.
And so it's serious. But, I treat a lot of patients here in the office because most people, like I said, the most common treatment is just try a medication, see if it helps, right? Well, as they continue to deteriorate, even if the medication does help, their symptoms, their progression still happens. And many times people are told, well, you're just kind of going to have to live with it.
Yep.
And, to me, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And what mostly happens is people do research, good old Dr. Google, and they, they look around and they find out that what I can do around, locally here in the office, that I can help them. And they had no idea. And we're actually able to help improve the function of the nerves so they can get back to doing more of the activities they were doing before. This happens every single day in my practice.
Well, I'll tell you, I was one of those. I just always assumed, based on what I heard, that once you have it, there's no, you can't even like hit the pause button. It just gets progressively worse.
Yeah.
And forget about reversing the damage. So what the heck are you doing? What kind of results are you getting? Fill us in.
Yeah, sure. Well, I would first like to say there is actually a lot more clinical trials going on showing the effectiveness of how people can still improve from this. Now, when people come in here, the first thing we do in the evaluation is we run a sensory test on their feet to find out what they are. So we collect a score, we gather a score from how they responded to the test. That actually gives us a solid indication of where they're at their starting point. Now, we know at certain aspects that usually around 60% deficiency, give or take, that's when we know people start losing their sensation, and falls can be more prevalent, right? So 60 and above, of course, that's a deficiency. Now, the numbers don't mean anything, but for us, it does. It helps guide us toward what type of treatment programs they need in order to get the results they want. So getting back again their life, being able to walk again, or even drive for that matter. These are all, we set goals for people like, okay, we're going to treat you. We're going to get you feeling better so you can start doing the things you want to do. So like I had a patient, wonderful woman. She was actually on disability and she loved to work. She could no longer work because this was keeping her out of, she actually fell at work several times and had to now, she had to now, unfortunately, like kind of pre-retire, if you will, because it wasn't really her choice. But so she came to us And at this point, she said to me that it's the saddest thing. She goes, I'm sitting around. I was just sitting around waiting in my house until the day that I had to use a wheelchair. And I was like, wow, like mind blown. I'm like, that's just unbelievable. And long story short, we treated her. She now feels her feet again. She's out walking. She's like, this is a miracle. I'd love to try to get her on. You know, a lot of people are a little nervous to get on here. I keep trying to get some people to come on the show here. So I'll get someone, but I have to coordinate schedules and have some people that aren't so nervous. I'm like, we're just talking. We're just having a conversation, right? But she would be a great one because she can tell you her whole story.
Yeah. It would be so cool to hear it from your patient's experience, and I'm sure that hopelessness that they felt and what life is like now. So where's she at? What's her life look like now that she's been working with you? Does she still work with you? How's that process look?
Yeah. So she's doing her thing. She's I don't see her as much now because she's better. So I don't have to see her as often, but she is out. She's walking and exercising again. And again, something she hadn't done in over 7 years. So even having it that long, she actually was having the symptoms, as I said, while she was working. So she was having these issues fighting through it till it got, again, so bad that she could no longer do it. And then she was home, from my memory, 6 or 7 years before she was able to, before she found us.
Yeah. So I would imagine, like many things when it, regarding health, the sooner you do something, the better. And you mentioned the pain before the really severe numbness. So is that the better time? I mean, when you feel that pain, and what's that sensation like?
Yeah. So it's a little different for everyone. In terms of pain, the most common things that you hear are either a burning sensation, right, or stabbing, sharp. A lot of times it wakes people up. Sometimes people actually feel their feet are ice cold. So it kind of, there are common symptoms that you hear all the time, but it does vary from person to person. As you start, so pain is actually means that you still have more nerve function. That when you start sliding down, right, to worse situation, health-wise that's when you start more of the numbness or tingling. So it's like the pain, it's not as painful. So I have some people come in and say the pain. Usually when we test them, their range isn't as severe. When people walk in and they're like, I have a hard time walking. I don't have a whole lot of pain anymore. I already know immediately when they just tell me that they're going to be more severe on that when we test them.
Yeah.
But the good news is, the way we determine that is their score. So if they score in certain ranges, I know exactly what to do to help them achieve their goals of getting back to doing the things they want to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. The treatment itself, is that something that I know what you do is so unique. It's probably even hard to explain it. Is it more of a visual, or is there any guidance you can provide there?
Well, we use, again, the integrative approaches of, we do use acupuncture in conjunction with these modern medical solutions. Actually, this technology was developed by NASA. So it's actually been used a long time. What's different is I have an exclusive protocol in which we combine the two in different phases, because you can't, for people that have this going on, you can't, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't do too much stimulation because their nerves are not functioning correctly, right? So like you can't throw the kitchen sink of all of this and that and the other thing that we do for people. We actually do it in stages, because as they progress, we're able to do more, and we add these different solutions. So it's like, oh, you're in phase 1. Okay, you're progressing. Now we're moving to phase 2. Now we're adding additional treatments. So that goes back to that whole integrative approach that we use that helps people, because most people don't do that. And what happens is you can make a patient worse. But I've been doing this for over 2 decades, And with my experience treating this, I know that when we follow this protocol, the patients get the best results. In fact, results they didn't even think were possible anymore. Just like that woman I was mentioning earlier, she really couldn't even believe it.
Wow.
Yeah. This happens every day, Charlie. Every day we're doing this in the office. And it's
good stuff.
I want people to know there is hope. You know, you can get better from this. You're not just masking the symptoms. When we treat in our office, you know, you're not just masking the symptoms, you're getting actual improvement. And we retest people, by the way. That test that we do initially, we test throughout in the different phases that I was just talking about. And you can actually see scores improving. But more important than scores, right? That's just a number.
Right.
But more important is what the person tells me. Hey, I'm able to do this. Wow, I'm feeling this. Wow, I'm not waking up at night anymore. Oh my goodness, I felt my socks. You know, I can walk again. I'm not falling as much. You know, I'm able to drive. You know, that's the most important part, right? The human, that's who we're treating, right? You're not I think we said this earlier in one of the shows, you're not a diagnosis, you're a person. You're just a person that's experiencing, you know, peripheral neuropathy in this case.
Yep. Yeah. So you allow them to enjoy days like today again. Get out there in the sun and the warmth and enjoy life. Wow.
That's right.
Yep.
Get out there, garden or walk, feel the sand between your toes here at the Jersey Shore. That's a good one. They like doing that.
You know, one last guy, I completely forgot about this. Our nephew's father-in-law took a walk on the Jersey Shore. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago now. It was right before they were getting married. And unfortunately, stepped on a shell, didn't feel it, got infected. And it got severely infected to the point where he was rushed to the hospital a few days later. He ended up passing away from that infection that he had no idea he even had a cut on his foot. His
Did he have neuropathy?
Well, I'm assuming because he didn't feel
it.
The shell. Yeah.
Wow, that's terrible. And you know what else is terrible? We didn't even get into this. Neuropathy can get so bad, if the nerves get so bad, people have to get amputations.
Yeah.
But I mean, that typically happens more with the people with diabetes.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because their circulation is so impacted down in their feet. And again, you can have this in your hands as well, but feet are pretty typical, and the feet are huge because, again, we walk. But can you imagine people are losing toes and, you know, even up to their ankle because that neuropathy and nerve damage has become so bad that it's literally damage has cut off their circulation. So now it's blood flow and circulation, right? As well as the nerves, right? You have sensory nerves and motor nerves, and it can affect all that.
Well, Dominic, I know this is hugely helpful for your listeners and your listeners' friends, family members. Some of them are going to want to get in touch. Fortunately, they're in the South Jersey area, or heck, even if they're not, it's probably worth. We talked about your private jet. Have you gotten that in the past?
I'm still saving my pennies.
But yeah, for those who want to learn more, want to get in touch, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the local area here, you can just go to the website and you can find out more information, healthsourceacupuncture.com. And but for everyone out there, there is hope. There are options out there. Don't be told you just have to live with it, because that's just not true. And we see this all the time, and I'm sure it happens in other places, but every day we're having miracles happen, and I know it can happen to you too. So don't give up. Never give up hope.
Awesome. Well, Dominic, I'm going to let you go a little early today. Get out there in the sunshine, and thanks again for doing what you do and sharing this important message. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to head out. I told you. I'm going to go enjoy this nice weather while it's here, Charlie.
Go get it. See ya.
Yep. Take care. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Health Unlimited podcast. To learn more about Dominic or his private practice, go to www.healthsourceacupuncture.com.